Good morning. Our hand today is going to be pocket tens. This is a 25 NL game. Folds around in small blind. I raise. This should be my raising range from the small blind, especially in games where everyone folds around, and also when we look at villain in the big blind, who's playing 17-6 with 3% 3-bet. His fold steal 73%, 3-bet steal 6%, but when we look at it, his fold blind steal 73% right here. Small blind, he's folded 91%. Big blind, he's folded 55%, and he's called 45%. So I think this is a pretty decent spot where we expect him to fold quite a few hands. Big blind's definitely going to be a little bit wider, but I think we've got some hands to play with now. Since he doesn't fold, a huge amount of the time, we could probably kind of shrink some of our range, kind of go with something like that if we want, and maybe that's what I'll do. Something, ace, suited king, suited queens, kind of keep with the better offsuit hands. Maybe add in these connectors here, these offsuit connectors, maybe even the offsuit one gapper, since we have potential to win with by flopping straight, or if those middle cards could give us two pair. So I think we're going to be raising something like this. Villain calls here. It's why we're going over the hand, and I put his range together at something like this. So you can see they're somewhat similar. He's going to be not as wide, but he doesn't have these hands. I'm not going to include them. There is one hand that he's raised, and I took a note on it. It's he oh, I guess that's not him. I thought that was him. Who was I looking at? I think maybe this guy, raised with King Jack. Yeah, so called button, pre-flop raise from small blind with aces. So he just called with aces from the button instead of raising. But we do have at least one raise. So maybe he's going to be tight. Let's do that. Let's just narrow it down to queens plus ace king, and we could also just kind of give percentages and say, since we're unsure, maybe 40% of the time he might have one of these big hands, and be tricky about it. So we go to the flop of 8-5-4. That's going to hit our range. It hits their range too. When it comes down to it, we can have 6-7 already flops. But I think if we c-bet, I think we're going to be getting called. I do think we should be c-betting, because we don't really want to see it. We don't want to let a jack, queen, king, or an ace get there for free, because all of those hands would probably, all like the weaker hands would check behind, and then they catch for free and beat us. So at least we can bet when we're ahead. They're going to have to catch. If we bet again, they're probably less likely to call. I mean, if they don't believe us, they'll call, and that's fine, because they're drawing. If they have overcards, they're drawing to 6 outs, so we don't mind that. So let's see what kind of hands we're going to c-bet here. I think we're c-betting the straight sets, 2-pair, overpair, top pair. Maybe our straight's going to be a check, and use that as part of our checking range. Let's get here. What is his fold to c-bet? In position 67%, 29% when out of position. Out of position is probably playing a little bit tighter. Yeah, because then he folds 50% of the time, 2 out of 4. Here it was 0 out of 1. So 4 out of 6 he folded, which means he went 2. Yep. Okay, so he's probably overfolding. This board isn't that great. I think our open ender we're probably betting. Our gut shots we're probably betting. And maybe our 2-card backdoor flush draws get in our check calling range. Maybe. I think we're going to do like pocket pair below the top card. That gives us a gut shot. That's going to be part of our bets. Then maybe these. Check calling. Let's get this color coded. Maybe the overcards. The overcards gives us a huge amount. So I kind of think some of our overcards we're going to be betting just as a bluff. Maybe something like that. Leave the rest of these as just checks. Some of them could be a check call. That's not increasing our overcards too much. So maybe that's something, and maybe I'm way off base. Maybe this is just a standard, c-bet here because the board's fairly dry. Villain's going to have a lot of overcards. It just kind of comes down to, do we think he overfolds a lot, or do we think it's going to take 2 barrels? Because that's the other thing. If he's going to call with all the overcards and not believe us, and then fold the turn when he doesn't improve, I'm going to say anything 9 or lower, it's going to be a good card for us. Then we're probably just going to be c-betting basically 100% of our range. He'll call with a somewhat higher frequency. So if he calls with these overcards, and his pairs, we'll say all of the pairs he calls, and his overcards and his draws, you're looking at 97%. But then he's going to be he's going to be folding, 45%, and probably these hands too, these bottom pairs and middle pairs, to a turn bet. So he'll be calling a lot on the flop, but then folding on the turn. So that's also a play. So we did c-bet. We bet 3. That's not too bad. A little less than half pot. So 37%, 37.5% maybe. I think that's a decent size. If Villain's going to call, he's going to call half pot. He's going to call that bet. If he's going to fold, he's going to fold to both of these sizes. I think this is just a little less risk. It may actually encourage those overcards. So I'm going to get rid of those. Get rid of those. Let's add those on there. Make sure we've got the overcards. Oh, no. We wanted those. So I think we said those are the hands that we're going to call or c-bet. So 57% we're c-betting. I think these other ones we're just going to check. And then maybe do a delayed c-bet on the turn. Definite possibility. So we bet 3. He calls. We're going to say he calls with his entire range. Everything that we set up. We'll assume that's what he does with those overcards. Jack of Diamonds comes, and that's not the greatest card. It's overcard to our 10. I think the worst card would be like an ace and maybe a king. Ace followed by a king. Those would be probably the worst, because I think with the aces, you have all of those offsuit aces. You have all of your suited aces. Like ace 4 is going to call, ace 5 is calling, ace 8 is going to call. So with that jack, it's not the greatest card. We already bet once, but I think we're going to be betting again because it's an overcard. If he had an 8, if he had a 5, if he had a 4, he's going to be afraid to call second because a jack came. Now he might get stubborn and call, but I think here, let's check the float. I was going to say here we were going to be betting here, but then I thought, let's check the float potential. So if we check, is he going to bet? And he's only had one situation here where he's done that. So I think we're still going to be continuing betting with those. 10s and 9s, I think, could be going for value. We could also use those maybe as a check bluff call, but I do think we should probably be betting those. I think we've got flush draw and open-ended straight draw we're betting. But I think the gut shots, I think at this time we're going to be checking, and I think those are going to match with our middle pair, pocket pair, weak pair. I think we're being aggressive. I mean, we're betting our draws, flush draws, so that we can still, and the open-ended, kind of balance that. I think it's just this card, pocket pair less than the top cards. Do we bet with those, or do we use them as like a bluff catcher? I'm going to guess maybe either way. So let's see. I check, and then he bets. And that's kind of where, let's get that. When we check and he bets, I think that is where we look at it and say, okay, we set it up. I think if we've got the gut shots, I think that's like our weak pair hands. Yeah, pocket pair less. I mean, those are going to be mix of value too, because those are all in our gut shot hands. So it's going to be a mix of some value and some draws. So do we call with all of our gut shots? Maybe. I think we've kind of set it up to do this. To allow him to bet like that by checking. And he didn't bet large, just under half pot. And this is probably a loose call. But I think if anything comes out, I think we're looking at like a 2, a 3, a 6, a 7, a 9, and maybe even a 10. I think we lead. Ace, king, queen, I don't think we do. I don't think we lead. So I think that could be our calling range. What would villain do this with? Since the board's fairly dry, yeah, I'm gonna say he could always have those pairs, and then he could be betting the draws. He could be betting the gut shots himself. He could be no-made hands. I'd like to think though that he would just check behind with maybe like the pocket pair less than the top card, middle pair, maybe the second pair, maybe check with the flush draw and open-ended straight draw, and that this is more of like gut shot. He's betting as a bluff, which poses a little bit of problems, because if he's betting with the gut shots, then if any of those cards come, it's likely that it's also possible that he could do that. But we're going to add these overcards as the bluffs. And probably not the no-made hands. We'll go something wide like that. Maybe it is no-made hands. Since we bet, he called, and then we checked, and now we're giving him a chance to steal it. Let's just leave that as is. 9 of clubs is the river. That's one of those. We should lead, I think, at this point. That would have been our plan. That would have been a reason for checking. So leading here, I think we're going out for maybe like 16, maybe 18. I think is what we should do. So is there any check call? No, I don't think so. I think all of these, we want to get value for these good ones, for these good hands. If we bet and we get raised, I think we can safely fold. Because I don't think most of these players are going to be raising his bluffs. So I think we're going for value with these hands. If he doesn't believe us, he doesn't believe us, he'll call. I think we are turning our middle pairs into bluffs. But I do think there's a possibility that he calls with some of these weaker hands, with these weaker pairs. Because maybe he doesn't believe us, or maybe we bet size and he's like, you know what, let's just see what you have. So I checked it, and that's just kind of maybe nothing, but I think we use those nothing and ace highs as bluffs. And then villain checks behind, and when he checks behinds, I can eliminate all of those top pair, plus we're looking at something pretty weak like that. Shows us, we show 10, he shows 6s, which is those weak pairs. And kind of makes sense. I mean, we're going to have to take a note on this is how he played it, so that we know, that. And once we checked to him, he could bet, and he didn't bet as a complete bluff. This was, he had a pair, he had a gut shot. It's 6 diamonds, 6 clubs, and then he called. Bet. We'll do 45%. Check. And this was 8 of spades, 5 of hearts, 4 diamonds, jack of diamonds, 9 of clubs. Yeah, I'm not sure if I like this hand or not. Not sure if I like how I played it. All right, took a break, kind of flipped this up. So I was curious. I do think my c-bet's okay. We could obviously look at the c-bet, but I think there's this turn decision, and I'm faced with situations like this all the time where I bet and I get called, probably a little bit more frequently at the 25 NL, and I'm starting to see it a little bit more at the 10 NL game against certain types of people. So I want to see, what is GTO's recommendation for this. So what we're going to do is, I'm going to go back to the flop. We already have our selection. What I would c-bet, what I think he's calling, that's going to be our range on the turn. And then I built GTO using those ranges. So I've got, that's going to be my flop range, that's going to be my his flop range that we get to the turn. All right, and then I gave myself different range sizes. So the way I set it up was, basically we both checked, so that way we can start on the turn here as a jack of diamonds. So just 100% check, 100% check. So we've got the range that we have here. All right, the range that we have here, and now it's looking like 76% of the time we are checking. That's going to be our decision. Now we have pocket tens, so we are right there, that we are going to be checking. Now what other hands are we going to be checking here? So it looks like we are checking a lot of our hands. Let's see here, we got a lot of ace high hands, a lot of no may hands, no flush draws that we're checking. Actually, let's start with the betting, just the betting overall. So all of our bets would be in blue. Looks like the over jacks and queens. Jacks bet for value. 8s are sometimes betting for value. 5s are betting for value. 4s are betting for value. And most of the time, it looks like most of our bets are going to be on this smaller size, this 1/3 pot size. I wonder if that differs if we change our check and our calling range here. But I mean, if we define it as being check as bet and a call, then I think GTO is going to adjust what cards get to the turn, whereas we don't. We already specified this is our range going, and we have his range. So 3 of a kind, sometimes it's a mix, sometimes, yeah, again, not a huge number. Betting a third, so it does look like we're betting 8s, jack 8s, 2 pair, 10 8, 9 8, trip 8s, 8 7, 8 6. So we've got a pair plus combos, pair plus like gut shot combos. We've got our 2 pair. Yeah, middle pairs definitely betting. 3 of a kinds betting. 2 of a pair. 2 pairs betting. Over pairs betting. Top pair with our jacks, with our ace jack. Yeah, because we don't have many other jacks in our range other than hands that kind of connected at that point, because we didn't really c-bet with a lot of those. We're c-betting more with the aces. Okay, so we're looking at middle pair, pocket pair less than the top card, so 9s and 10s are getting checked for the most part. Middle pair is being bet, but I think that's because we've got gut shots too. 23.9% or 23.9 combos have this gut shot. So I think it's basically our, if we have pair plus a gut shot, we're continuing. Weak pair plus our gut shot. Ace high includes our gut shot. No made hand includes just a mix of stuff. So those are all the non-pair hands other than ace high. Okay, so it looks like we are just checking here. So we check. That's good. And then villain should be betting about 45% of the time. So he bets. And then it does look like we call with the 10s, we call with the 9s. We check raise some of these hands. Okay, no big surprise. We're folding a lot of these junky hands that don't have any improvement. We're calling mostly pairs, middle pairs. Okay, so we do call, and then this was 9 of clubs. Let's see what the 9 of clubs. So if we get to there, then we're checking 100% of the time with that 9, and he's going to be betting, but when he checks, so he's betting, yeah, top pair plus. So yeah, I think when he bets again, we're probably not going to be calling because I don't think players bluff enough here. Let's change it. I think we said anything like 9 or less. So let's do a 9 of clubs there. I think 9 or less we continue betting. And it does look like we are betting, and we're still betting the smaller size. We're still betting the smaller size. We're still betting. I mean, we're betting our middle pair, and those look like we still have. We don't have as many gut shots, so we probably have some checks with our middle pair here. Yeah, we've got a lot of checks with our middle pair. Yeah, there's our breakdown at this point. 31% it's ace high, so 15%. We're looking at over 50%. We've got a pair plus. We're checking top pair. That's interesting, but we're betting most of our over pairs. We can check aces probably to protect our weaker stuff, but we're still mostly betting our 10s, jacks, queens, and kings. Let's give it like a pair, like a pair of 4s. Still looks like we are betting. We're mostly betting. We mix in some half pot size bets here, just kind of as somewhat balance. We're betting some ace highs. Those are part of gut shots. Okay, so we're not just like completely bluffing. I mean, we do have some bluffs here, just true bluffs. Yeah, king queen suited or king queen ace king. We are betting some of those as a bluff, but for the most part, we're betting when we have some sort of draw too. So gut shots or a pair, weak pair. What if this was a 2? And we're still a little bit of bluffs, but we're still definitely. It's looking like we are betting if we have a pair or some sort of draw here. So yeah, and let's change it. I'm going to change that to like the ace because I really kind of felt like the ace was going to be a bad card for us. Yeah, and we're checking 90%. So if we check and then all of a sudden he bets, at that point, yeah, we should be folding. I mean, he's saying 100. This is saying 100% just because villain's going to be so likely that he has an ace. Obviously, it's different if we have an ace ourselves. I don't think king is as bad. Yeah, it was 90% check. Now we're at 71%. So if we check and he bets, we're back to the ace. So ace was by far the worst card that could come. All right, so let's just confirm that let's go back to the flop. Let's just confirm that my c-bet was okay. All right, so I'm not sure if this is gonna be valid because I ran into problems of size. So I wanted to give a mix of sizes, and I couldn't do 100%. Ran out of memory. Couldn't even do these because it wouldn't let me run. So I changed that just to 0, so that I'm going to check the turn. And that allowed me to run it. So we'll see the decision. So right now you can see 84% of the time we're going to be checking versus or on this board. So there is a small chance we're betting 10s and 9s, but it looks like we are really checking most of the time, and we're betting a mix between the smaller size 33.5 pot. So let's see here. So straights have about, constitute about 2.6% of our hands, and it looks like we're betting those about 50% of the time. Sets we're betting about 50% of the time. 2 pair looks like we're betting about 50% of the time, maybe less. So straights and sets we're betting. Looks like we're betting top pair a little more than, or a little less than half percent of the time, or a little less than 50% of the time. Middle pair we're betting. These we're favoring the smaller sizes, so it looks like the ace fives we're calling, probably because we have some like wheel draws. So I did, yeah, ace 5, you got some wheel draws. 7-5, 7-6, so we've got some gut shots as well. 5-3, 5-2 backdoor straights. Favor, yeah, slightly. Yeah, overall it looks like we are just checking. So even the over pairs looks like we are just checking the vast majority of the time. So maybe our bet wasn't that good based on GTO. Because if we bet, I'm going to guess villain should be calling a lot. Villain's going to have a lot of draws that he calls, and he's going to have himself straights and sets. I mean, smaller percentages he should be raising, but if he calls, he's calling with those pairs, which again doesn't. I mean, if we bet and he calls, I think we want to get some value. So I guess if we check and he checks behind, and we got that jack of diamonds coming out, then we're going to check 100%. And if he bets, I mean, he shouldn't be betting, but if he does bet, then it looks like we're calling. And that's where I think if we check, I bet villain bets, and then we're going to be stuck calling. And now we kind of go for raises with some of our top pairs that we're checking. Okay, so top pairs would be, so if we didn't, we could bet straights and sets, some of our 2 pairs, but then if he bets, we could use those as a check raise along with our top pair. That's interesting. So check raising a top pair, that's 43% of the time we're check raising top pair. Maybe pocket pair less than the top card a little bit, so 10s could have been part of our check raise here. Nines or more, probably for the blocking potential. So that less likely that he has like a 9-10 or maybe like a 9-7, 9-6. So we block some of those. All right, so yeah, we're checking a lot, and then he bets, and then we could turn a lot of these hands into a check raise. Some of our gut shots are going to be a raise, and we're raising up to 21. So he bets 6, we raise to 21. That's going to be 3.5 big blind, or 3.5 his bet. So that I can go with that. So all right, so let's get back to our hand. Let's finish this up. Overall, I won the hand. Was I happy with how I played it? Not really. Not really. I thought my c-bet was going to be okay, but it looks like based on GTO, we should be checking this and planning to check all or check raise with our 10s. If we think villain's going to be betting here. What is his float percentage? 50%. So it's possible that he bets. He did bet on the turn when we skipped our c-bet. So we could use that as a check raise. And then if he calls, we're probably betting again. So let's just double check. So we bet, we raise, he calls. Nah, then it looks like we are checking. Did I do... Oh, I did. I had 0% that we're going to check. So I should have turned that off and we should have ran it. But actually, no. We already said we couldn't run it. So I'm going to have to figure out how to get more memory on this computer. Free up space so we can run more of these. All right, hopefully you enjoy this hand. If you do, look tomorrow for another one.